Well, welcome back, everybody, to the My First Rodeo podcast, the show that asks really cool people questions about the first time they did the thing that set them on their path to success. And today is no exception. We're going to talk to Brad Oscar. Although his last name is Oscar, he's been nominated for a couple of Tonys, and he's a Broadway actor, and we'll get to that in a bit. But first, I want to tell you that I'm here again with a really cool person in her own right, Jenn Weeks.
Hey, thank you, Michael. It's good to be here again.
Well, I'm glad you're here, too. You make the show so much fun, and everybody loves listening to you and hearing your jokes. What you been up to?
Just working, living life, living the dream or the nightmare, depending on the day. No,
Yeah.
just working, still work full-time, still do comedy, and writing in between.
You traveling much?
I have been traveling, doing a lot of Central Florida work.
Okay. And getting back to Alabama at all, where your family is?
I haven't been. I went. My niece graduated from high school last month, so I was there actually for the Mother's Day. She graduated the Friday before Mother's Day, so I was able to be there for the weekend.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
So
You get some good material. You always seem to come back with really good material.
I did. Yes, it's always fun. My nieces, and then my great or grandnephew, who's one, and it's funny. He loves reading, but it's the funniest thing. I don't care where we are. If he sees a book, he will pick it up and stop right there and sit down. I don't care in a rest. I don't care where we are. He is going to stop and he is ready to read.
How old is he?
He is 1.
Oh, that's impressive. And literally reading.
Yes. Well, he's good at words. He can point at some things, apple and frog, broccoli, but
Yeah.
or he'll give it to you.
And
Or
is he
if he
right?
sits down-
Is he right?
No, not yet.
Just looking at, so mainly green things. He likes broccoli and frogs.
But he does like apples. He can point out the apple. Yeah.
Okay, the red apples.
Yeah.
Just saying, maybe he's colorblind. You don't even know it.
So yeah, but it's always I always find material when I go back home.
Yeah. I always enjoy your trips. We should pay for you to go there periodically.
Right.
So music usually seems to be food centered. There's always, something being cooked.
Absolutely. My sister loves to cook, and she did it again.
No shortage of butter.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. My grandmother was heavy with the butter and the lard, as she
Yeah.
called it. But yeah, my sister, she's gonna cook up something every time,
That's it.
and I'm always like, I'm ready. Let me taste test.
You're good to eat. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
small portions. Do they give you refill your plate, and it's rude if you don't have a couple seconds and thirds?
Oh no, we're past that phase. It's like, hey, my sister's like, hey, I want you to try this, and there's no, I don't eat that. She's like, eat it. So she made some kind of fish tacos and made cornbread and crumbled on top and did something. It was amazing. I didn't think I would like it, but it was good.
You ever bring anyone over that's not used to that sort of culinary experience, and how do they deal with it?
No. I mean, the people in the neighborhood, I never bring anybody back with me. I have before, but everybody in the neighborhood kind of knows. Like,
I got you.
my sister, yeah, they're gonna try out what she has. So,
Yeah.
So.
That's how my parents grew up too. I was just telling my mom yesterday. I had them all over for Father's Day, and Jewish cuisine tends to be not, at least historic stuff, not terribly healthy or tasty. And I was telling my mom that they call it schmaltz. You know what schmaltz is?
I don't.
It's like chicken fat, and there'd always just be some chicken fat on the counter or in the oven, and I guess you could just, I don't know, use it to grease pans or clog your arteries. It serves a variety of purposes.
Right. I'm like, okay, that's stupid.
So yeah, it's not terribly healthy. But they're 81 and 82, so whatever they're doing.
Clearly, it has some level of health, some benefit to it.
Yeah, although who knows what the...
Get some chicken fat.
Yeah, schmaltz.
Schmaltz.
You could maybe combine your family's cuisine with my cuisine, make it some sort of soul food or something like that.
Yes.
So,
Kosher soul food. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
it probably wouldn't taste very good. It would take all the good stuff out of it. You'd have a lot of salt. That's basically what you sit down in my family's house. You take the food and then you just start dumping salt on it because it didn't taste that good to begin with.
Mm. And whereas we probably already have added the butter to it, which had salt in it. So
Yeah, you definitely would not go with the unsalted butter, would you?
no, maybe for baking cake. No, not even for baking cakes.
Yeah,
Can I have a little salt?
yeah, I guess so. I just do the eating part. I don't really do the cooking part. But
So you don't cook much?
no, since I became single about 1.5 2 years ago, I assemble food. I can grill things. I can put.
You say things as if it's not food. I can grill things.
Yeah, I mean the stuff, but we're eating okay. I've been getting into stews lately. I've decided that a crock pot is kind of like the smoothie of entrees.
That is. Yeah, you can put it on and go to sleep, wake up, it's still cooking.
It smells good. It makes like a potpourri.
You could do that as well.
What I'm learning is that some things, and our listeners are saying you needed to learn that, but yes, I needed to learn that some things just turn soupy in a crock pot, whereas some things can keep their core. You know, your starches are going to do all right, but broccoli, green beans, don't throw green beans in a crock pot. They're not going to do it very well.
Yeah, and if you do rice, be very careful with that. Can't leave it in there too long.
No, you put the rice in afterwards, I'm learning, or just cook the rice separately.
Completely separate, yeah.
The other thing I'm not quite clear on what to do is the bones. Like I put chicken in with the bones, and but then you wind up with this, which is good, but then you wind up with this soupy thing, and then you got to eat it and wonder if you're going to get poked in the throat. So I guess in answer to your question, Jen, I don't cook.
I absolutely am. Like, this sounds like very experimental.
Yeah. So we go out a lot. Chick-fil-A is big on our list. But anyway, you ready to get to the show?
I am.
Cool. I think you're going to like this one.
Definitely.
Well, Jen, I am excited to introduce you to somebody who I would say is a friend, although you usually see friends more recently than every 40 years. But we certainly started off as neighbors and friends. He was a classmate of my sister's, but he's gone on to be something so much more than that. In 2001-ish, he was portrayed as the Cinderella story of Broadway, but I don't think that's fair because he had been working hard and had been supporting himself as an actor for many years before that. But that's the time, and Brad will correct me if I'm wrong, when he went from being Santa Claus in Missouri in a touring company where he was performing that not-so-Jewish role to becoming a playwright who was a Nazi worshiper, also not a terribly Jewish character. So that's kind of interesting since Brad and I both come from that background. But he has been in so many great things. He is a two-time Tony nominated for both The Producers and also Something Rotten, where he portrayed Nostradamus. He's been in Mrs. Doubtfire, Big Fish. He's currently in Little Shop of Horrors. Gosh, there's so many that you've been in. Spam-A-Lot, The Addams Family, Oliver recently. It sounds like you might have been doing a couple productions simultaneously. I want to.
Yes, I got a brief 2-week hiatus to do that Oliver here in the city. Yes,
that is outstanding. Yeah. And of course, he has film credits and the obligatory Law and Order and other television credits.
I saw that.
Exactly.
So, but I am so excited to catch up with you in person. I've followed your career and admired it. And my parents keep me posted on your parents and your sister Vicky, who's also an actress. So, Brad, thanks for taking the time to join us.
Of course, it's my pleasure. It's great to be here with you both. Yeah, thanks.
So, gosh, man, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that my first theater credit was, I think, perhaps Brad's first directorial credit. I don't know how much directing you've done since then, but
not a lot. But really, you have to remind me of that. I forgot. Yes,
it was the Hanukkah show at the Jewish Community Center,
JCC,
in Rockville, Maryland, where you were directing. I don't know why it was probably the first sort of dirty wordish thing I ever heard. And I think this was an original production that maybe you and Harriet.
I think it was. No, me and my friend Naomi, I think, wrote it.
I had a very little part, although, it was my first little thing. It was whatever. I was taking theater classes. And there was some sort of a mystery where something had been hidden. And I'll try to bring you into the cultural references here, Jen. But there was a menorah.
Uh-huh.
You know what a menorah is?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
All right. So a menorah where something was hidden, and I was like a little detective or something. And at one point, you had written the lines, but maybe not thought them through fully. And my line, I was an 8-year-old kid, I didn't know what it meant, was, do these little cups, thank you, dog, do these little cups screw off? And everybody started laughing, and I didn't realize why everyone was laughing. You reworked that line.
Wow. I guess, that was our out-of-town tryout, if you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God. That's hilarious. See, that was one of the few occasions at the JCC where the inmates ran the asylum. They let us write and put on this show, on stage. But the JCC was a formidable place for my so much of my education when I was younger, because they had great theater programs for kids, and I did a lot there and learned a lot there. That was a big part of my education.
That's pretty neat. Well, of course, this is
how about that?
we call this My First Rodeo, so that's a great place to get started. So is that where you got started?
Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. Ironically, that we're talking about that. I mean, that would be the place where, for the first time, I came together with other, other kids my age who were really into theater, musical theater, putting on shows, all of that. And the JCC had not only this wonderful summer program where we put on a full production, where I did 3 consecutive summers and did Fiddler and Dolly and Oliver, great classic shows. But then they had classes during the year, which you just spoke of. And that was also a fabulous training ground. By the time I got to Boston University, where I went to college, and as an actor, there was stuff that, I was being introduced to as a freshman acting major that I had already been introduced to by certain teachers at the JCC, certain, sort of basic things and principles, whatever. So yes, it was definitely a place where I, found and was able to actually activate this passion that I had.
That's outstanding. And it was the, what was it? STAY, Summer Theater Arts for Youth.
Summer Theater of the Arts for Youth. Exactly. STAY. And, ironically, listen to this. It's funny how life plays out. That summer, my first summer, which was a year called 1977, the theater department at the JCC was still under was being run by, or was being, led by a woman whose name was Karen Brooks Hopkins. Karen, soon after, in 78 or 79, left the JCC and the DC area, came to New York, and became an integral part of BAM, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and became one of the 2 major forces with Harvey. I will pronounce his name wrong if I try to say it. But they really, throughout the course of the 80s into the 90s, made BAM what it is today, which is a huge, my gosh, what BAM does under their umbrella, what happens there. And Karen was a big part of that, especially in fundraising. She now works for the Onassis organization. We are finally going to have lunch in a couple of weeks. I see her every several years or whatever. She sometimes sees me in shows, but it's very funny because she was there at the very start of everything that we're talking about, and she's someone that I'm still randomly in touch with.
That's outstanding. That's really neat. And was she helpful at all for you, or you for her? As you all
well, I mean, she was helpful in the way that she, obviously I was auditioning, I believe, for this program for STAY for that summer or whatever. And so she was part of, producing that or whatever. And she was always very encouraging. And she was part of another organization downtown in DC, New Playwrights Theater on Church Street, which was very active during the 70s, did great stuff down there, where I also attended and went to see stuff. So yes, she was one of those people, mentors, people in your early life that, for whatever reason, are influences and, just spark, or, and are sparked by you, in that way.
Awesome. Yeah. I do have a question. Speaking of first, was acting your first love prior to going to JCC? Did you have, when I grew up, I want to be a fireman, and then it changed? Or
I don't know. I mean, I feel like, yes, in the sense that I was always like, putting on shows and doing stuff like that. And once, because my parents had great taste in music, popular music at the time, but also show music, because they enjoyed the theater, going to the theater, and they would come to New York City and see shows. So they were very in touch with what was happening. And so I was hearing the latest, theater scores that were happening in my formative years, which is like the best time to have ever grown up if you love musical theater, the late 60s, early 70s, when everything just blossomed and changed, and it was just an amazing time. And so I was introduced to that at a very early age too, I think, through osmosis. My parents went to the theater. My parents took me to the theater. So there was, I guess, because it was, surrounding me, it was something I always sort of took to. So as early as I can remember wanting to like do anything, or realizing that, yes, it was a profession. And I guess I learned early on because my parents did take me to the theater. So I guess I got that you could do that. And it was a profession, in as much as one understands you get, whatever that was. So I really always sort of did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you graduate high school? Obviously, you were doing quite a bit, and you head immediately to Boston University, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And do you participate in the acting scene outside of college in Boston, or you move from the college scene immediately to New York?
Yeah, no, I do 4 years in Boston, and I come home pretty much to DC and do like some summer theater, in the DC area. There's Montgomery College Summer Dinner Theater, which I'm sure you know, which was a community college where we grew up in Rockville, that again had a great summer program, and that was for, again, mostly college age kids, although I had done it when I was in between my junior and senior year of high school, but I didn't play leading roles until my summers in between college. But again, a great summers and great whatever. But no, once I graduated BU, I pretty much knew I always wanted to come to New York. Again, my parents were, because they loved the city. Once I was of a certain age, me and my sister and my folks, we'd come up for the weekend. We'd see like 4 shows, and it was great. We were able to do that. And so I was introduced to this world, which was Fantasyland to me, and the Broadway theater and what that was all about. And so, I always wanted to be here. So yes, once I graduated school, it was sort of a given that I was going to at least give it a whirl.
Yeah, you did. And let's talk about some of the early, I don't know if they were attempts or successes, but first auditions on Broadway or for Broadway opportunities.
Well, I went to a lot of, well, here's the deal. When I first moved here, I belonged to AFTRA. SAG and AFTRA were separate at the time, the unions for performers. So at the time, I belonged to AFTRA, which was representing television and radio, because I had done television in DC growing up. I did some TV when I was like 12, 13 years old in DC at Channel 4, some locally produced show, and then one at Channel 9, the CBS affiliate. So I was able to then join SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, as Daddy's talking, and then eventually Actors Equity, because at that point you could buy into the other unions, and buying into specifically Actors Equity, the Stage Actors Union, enabled me to go to the open calls that Equity held, which were very prevalent and required of all productions. And, literally the whole cattle call thing, you get to sing 16 bars, maybe 32 bars of your own choosing. Usually they're just looking for types. They're not, it's a thing. And it ultimately, ironically, did get me my first Broadway show. But it's a very frustrating way to audition. I have since learned, of course, because I now have the luxury of having an actual proper audition where I either prepare material or you at least have a set time. It's a different thing than the open call. But that's part of, again, the training ground, the thing. And I did that. So I did that for a couple years, really. I waited tables, at a restaurant in the neighborhood, which was great because I got to know a lot of people connected to the business. We got a lot of free tickets to Broadway shows that were in previews before they opened, that wanted to fill the house, that wanted us to see the show and talk about the show as far as that goes, because the restaurant was right in the neighborhood and was very popular with theater people and tourists as well. And I sort of did the thing.
So that goes on for a while, I assume, a period of years where you're doing those really short auditions, getting little to no positive feedback.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. For like 3 years. And then I did get my first professional job, my first equity contract job. And that was in Worcester, Massachusetts, a production of a musical review called Tomfoolery, which are the songs of Tom Lehrer, who was a satirical songwriter, if you will, from the 60s, very popular, very crazy, funny, but very timely. And even still so in many ways. So anyway, but that was my first like equity gig. I went away for, it was maybe 2 months total, top to bottom. And then came back to New York, and that was in 1989. And again, still went back to these open calls or whatever. And then, in the fall of 89, which is like a little over 3 years after I moved to the city. I go to an open call for the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical Aspects of Love, which was happening and being brought over from London, his first big show after Phantom. And yeah, through the process of going to an open call and getting a call back, I got that. It was my first Broadway show. And yeah, and that started the ball rolling.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, I know you talked about the open calls, but once you got in there and started getting, the gigs that you wanted, or at least being seen, what is the first thing you look for? If you accept an audition, or even before you go on it, what is the first thing you look for in a project or a musical? Is it based on, well, now that you're seasoned, you're at the point that you can pick the ones you want, but before
no, not really. I mean, look, I'll tell you, here's the deal. I'm in a business where, we all tell stories, right? It's basically what we do. We tell stories. So you've got writers and directors, and designers and actors. And so, people come together to do these things. Now, work as far as like paid work and work that actually pays, it's something decent, a living wage, is still, especially on, live theater. It's rare. I mean, post-COVID, it's rare. It's not as great. It's tenuous. It always has been, but it feels even more so. So as far as opportunity goes, yes, of course, you want to do material that you feel passionate about and that speaks to you in some way. And we do a lot of readings and a lot of workshops of shows that we are either brought onto or maybe auditioned for. And that's nice to be a part of a process, because if the piece does go somewhere, you are a part of it. Mm-hmm. And I have been. Something Rotten was a piece that I had done previous reading and workshop of, so I was part of the development of it. That's a very joyous and special thing. But I'm not. I can't say I'm that picky and choosy. I mean, I can be picky and choosy when it comes to like little projects that aren't going to necessarily either pay me anything, or I do read the project and I'm like, it's not worth, like, I will get offers for gigs out of town sometimes. So is it worth leaving my home, my husband, my dog? And
that was more passion on the dog.
It did sound like passion.
No, only because you've heard the dog. My husband doesn't bark. So, yeah, the older I get, yes, I have a certain luxury, because between the two of us, as far as work goes, we could make that work. If I choose not to do a gig, it's not like, oh my God, we have to pay the mortgage or whatever. We're very, lucky that way. But yes, I've never come from a place, it's funny, as an actor, I've never come from a place of, I get to sort of select what I want to do, because basically, you're always looking for work, because once you have a job, so I have a job now that I've had for the last almost 8 months now. I think I've been with Little Shop, almost 9 maybe. Very grateful. A gig at home, loving it. Great play, great piece of great, American musical theater. It's a really good piece. And so, that's all very good. But whenever that ends, or I leave that or whatever, unless I'm leaving for something else specifically, it's like, you're looking for your next job. And so, yeah, you never get off that gerbil wheel, if you will.
That's interesting. And I guess that's an actor's journey in the movies as well. Although, there's certain people that reach a certain level of success, whatever, the Brad Pitts of the world, who obviously get to look at a bunch of scripts and pick and choose. There's not really the Hollywood equivalent. In fact, I'm thinking about this out loud, so I could be entirely wrong. It's actually the Hollywood people that come in and they can pick and choose their Broadway shows from time to time.
Well, sure. Of course.
Which isn't really fair.
Right. Well, I mean, look, that's all about celebrity. That's all about money. Mm-hmm. That's all about, I mean, look, if the reality of, because the irony of being, especially a stage actor is, and it was mentioned in a Tony speech by Brandon Uranowitz, that we have no money. Mom, he wanted to do stuff for his mom and dad, but like he said, well, I'm an actor, so I really can't, as far as financially. Yeah. So, yes, the odds of making, big money being a stage actor is, and so at a time in my life with the producers when I was making some decent money because I had taken over the leading role or whatever, and I saved money and I was able to buy buy an apartment and do things like that, I was very aware that that was not the norm. you know, and it's not. And indeed, it hasn't been for me. I've gone along. I've had some jobs that have, you know, paid me decent, and some jobs that, you know, you get by. And but this, you know, that's, part of the deal.
Is that tough? I mean, stating the obvious, it's tough, but you know, you're putting yourself out there, you're selling yourself and your storytelling, you're having successes and valleys and peaks, you're making really good money, and then pretty shortly after, you know, you may not be, not just your story, but the Broadway story. I mean, how do you stay healthy mentally and psychologically and spiritually through those things that you obviously have to identify with your craft to some extent, but you can't do it so much that when you're, you know, off Broadway or touring or not working, that you think you're a loser.
Right. Correct. No, Mike, I so agree. I mean, you know, ego in the sense of I am what I do, not cocky me, but I am what I do. This is what I bring to the table. That's it. And so it is a very personal thing in that way. And it is very easy to let that, take over in ways that are, you know, very unhealthy and very, but, you know, again, acknowledging a lot of that is half the battle, right? Because we all have our self-doubts. We all just do. And as I've gotten older, I've tried to trust myself, trust the work that I've done, the place that I am, all that stuff that it's hard sometimes to acknowledge, because again, as I said, there's always this sense you have to prove yourself. There's always this sense that it's going to end. It's not, it was all a facade, you know, I don't know. Right. I mean, not, you know, it's not like I go through my day that way, but you know, because you walk that tightrope, because you go out there every night and it's live. And there are still nights, you know, that I go out there, you know, doing a show that I, you know, now know very well. And it's really in my bones. But there's just always still a certain danger, if you will. And it's a strange place to live. And just the demands of what that is. And, you know, but that's part of, again, that's the job. And that's part of also what I love about it, because it is live. And I know there's somebody out there having an experience that is very special. And you know what I mean? You have to, you know, that there's something, and that's, there's something still organic and sort of that's, you know.
Yeah. What was your first onstage flop, or what is the first onstage horror story that you remember?
Assuming there's been one.
Oh, God. God. Well, you know what? I mean, here's something. Now, this is funny, Mike. This is really crazy because it keeps the fact that I haven't even thought about this Hanukkah play or whatever. Let me ask you a question here, because is my memory correct? I was also in this play, correct?
You were in that as well, yeah.
Okay. So my onstage flop, I remember, because this thing was so bad. This was not good. This was not good. And if I recall, we probably had a very small turnout, and that's probably for the best, if I recall.
A lot of our parents probably.
Yeah, exactly. And I do remember just sort of laughing on stage at one point, that it was such a mess that we were just at that point sort of goofing. I you know, and I do recall that, which is a horrible thing.
It felt like it was my first, so it felt like a very polished piece to me.
I'm very sorry. that was you. I hope it got better.
I did have two other summers. I think you directed Stay twice, didn't you? And I was in Bye Bye Birdie, and then
which I co-directed with Harry, exactly,
and Once Upon a Mattress. Was that you as well, or no?
No. Was my sister? My sister was in Mattress, wasn't she?
I think that's right. Yeah, she was the queen, perhaps.
I think so. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think what? Yeah. So yeah. Oh,
they happen.
But yeah, on stage. I mean, gosh. I mean, I don't remember any particular. You know, it's funny. Like I said, because it's sort of live and it happens, and then it's over, and it never happens that way again.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I mean, there have been mishaps. There have been times, you know, when I've gone up, I have no idea what I'm saying or going to say. And that's mortifying. And you just blabber your way through it, or someone helps you back, or, you know, somehow you get through it. But, you know, again, it's a weird thing, because it's muscle memory in so many ways. You know, I don't think about the lines I'm about to say because I know the lines, but sometimes for whatever reason, your mind goes in a certain place, and it's crazy. So those are horrifying moments. Those are moments I absolutely hate.
I know you do 2 shows a day, at least once a week, right?
Actually, right now we're doing 2 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday.
And Jenn and I have that experience doing comedy from time to time. There'll be 5 shows in a weekend, so 2 shows, 2 days. And I know you've had this experience, Jenn, or I know I have, where you forget whether you told this joke already or not, or whether you set up this joke or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if is it harder to do shows in a day with that muscle memory and looking for cues?
Well, I mean, it's just sort of always the uphill climb to me psychologically. But, where when you go in Saturday at 1:30, half hour before the 2 p.m. show, and you know that, you've gotten to Saturday, by the way. Your week started on Tuesday, but you've gotten to Saturday and your week is half over. Yeah. So, you're about to do half your week in the end of the next 2 days, practically. Yeah. So, that's always the trick. But yes, believe me, we'll do the matinee and then, we have dinner, we have our break or whatever. You go back on stage that night and boom, we're right back in it. And I'm like, wait, literally that we just did this? Oh my gosh. But, again, that's what we do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's cool. So you, let's talk about another first, your first, I don't know which one's more interesting, but the way that you broke into the producers, both as the first character that you played, Franz Liebken, and then as the understudy, and then ultimately as the starring role, obviously becoming the starring role for a Hollywood actor, who's also a great stage actor in his own right. Talk about those couple of firsts, because they didn't happen. Maybe they happened in the way they often happen on Broadway, but they didn't happen predictable way.
No, they certainly didn't. I mean, it does happen. Look, again, these things are, they're coming together. Stuff happens. You have it's all we live, by the way, I say we, in this world that I'm in, a purely subjective world, as we know, right? So everyone's an artist trying to put together, and with a musical, a single vision with many people coming together to do that, a musical especially. So it is just the story is so random and crazy that I still sometimes can't believe it, only because the deal is I was brought on, weeks before they started rehearsals. I was brought on only to be a standby for the role of Max Bialystock, being played by Nathan Lane. And then they said, you'll also stand by for the role of Franz Liebken, this crazy Nazi. So then rehearsals started a couple of weeks later, and boom, I was also covering other ensemble character men as well. So my plate was very full. And to make this as short as possible, I went from that being what I was doing in the producers to going to Chicago out of town with the show to try out, to going on as Franz because the actor had to have some surgery, to being asked to take over Franz between Chicago and New York, to opening on Broadway with the producers as Franz, and then several weeks later receiving one of the 15 Tony nominations that the producers received. And so there I was, basically, this is 5 months after this whole journey began, and all of a sudden I was a Tony nominee for the producers, along with the five other principals in the show, which was just extraordinary, an honor, much less a juggernaut like it was at the time. It was very exciting. It was thrilling, especially for a boy who grew up loving Broadway. I mean, this was, everything. At the theater where I saw my first Broadway show, I'm doing the producers. So, it was, I still, to this day, yes, it was just amazing. And so, and then, again, how the journey continued to unfold, because of the way I was brought in, I was still covering Max, but because I now was playing a principal role, I probably wasn't. I wasn't sure if I was going to be going on for Max. Well, lo and behold, I still was during that first year, and so over the course of the first year, this role, which is very demanding, Nathan Lane at some point could not. No one should do what we do. Is 8 times a week. 8 times a week we do these plays. Now, whether it's a easy track for me like Little Shop of Horrors or having to play Max Bialystock, the differences in those are so extraordinary and enormous. And nobody else does what we do, I say, 8 times a week. Athletes, ballet dancers, opera singers, nobody puts their bodies through that in that way that it requires. And so yes, the actor would go down. When I was playing Max, subsequently when I took over, I would go down. I mean, down for like a week. Your body just says, no, your voice just go. It's time. You have to fall back and regroup. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to go on for Max a lot, which was crazy, and then eventually play Max, on open the tour, and then come back to Broadway, and then go to London, and it just turned into a really wonderful job, and a really special piece.
And as you say, such a big role. I obviously don't know every one of your roles, but those your two Tony-nominated roles are big. Not just big roles time-wise. You have big personality roles. Is that pretty much what you're known for now? Do you ever play, I don't want to say smaller roles, but lower key roles?
It's funny. I mean, yes. I mean, I've had the opportunity, obviously, to do other things. A show like The Producers, exactly. That style of comedy. Something Rotten, exactly. Same thing. Big, broad, that character, my God. But yes, I've had, Little Shop, here we are. What I love about Little Shop too is that we're in a 280 seat theater off Broadway. So that's a whole other thing. And obviously that dictates size and story. And yes, Little Shop is a heightened reality. It's an exaggerated, slightly, I don't want to say cartoony, but it has that especially heightened sort of reality about it. So, but there's a joy in being able to play, again, smaller. Choices can be smaller. Things can be more because people are right there. They're more part of than in a Broadway house. It's a different sort of thing. But look, it all depends on the style of the material. And yes, you get known for doing certain things. I get known for obviously, yes, being funny, broad, big, and that's, an honor, and also like scares the hell out of me because the expectation that comes with that, I do, like I said, a lot of these readings, we do a lot of these getting things off the ground. So, when people tell you, oh my God, I'm so happy you're the only one I thought of. You're going to be amazing. I know how brilliant you're going to be. You're so funny. You're so this, you're so that. And you're like, oh my God, because, I'm only as fun, and I'm a bit, I also feel like I like to collaborate. You know what I mean? I like to have people involved in, finding things. But as far as part of the process goes, but yes, you do get known for certain, but I'm happy again in our little village of Anatevka, as far as the theater world goes, and casting directors and people who put shows together, producers and whatever. I'm very happy to be known at all, much less, yes, to have had the honor of, being a part of, again, some real good musical comedies, some real good pieces of musical theater, not just musical comedies. My God, this production of Sweeney Todd that I got to do off Broadway a couple of years ago, that was literally set in a pie shop, an environmental small production of Sweeney that was just easily one of the highlights of my entire career, was something unlike anything I've ever done or ever will do again. So yeah, I've been very fortunate to get to do a lot of different things as well.
That's good. I was going to ask, I know that you did TV and film as well.
Little bit.
Did you step over that realm and, your first time, like, I think I'll go back? Or because when you're doing theater, it's live. There's no cut. Right. Let's roll that back, So do you prefer?
Oh, I'm totally honest. I would love to do more film and TV. And, I audition. I've had my share. I've done my, little bit here, a little bit there. Mm-hmm. But it has never been my bread and butter. It has never been something that sort of continued to sort of roll along, for whatever reason. And again, you talk about, again, your self-doubts, your self-deprecate, you're thinking, oh, well, I'm not a screen actor at all. And I watch the work I've done and I talk to people. I'm like, no, fine. Well, and I see it and I'm like, well, I think it is.
Yeah.
So, again, it's a very random, I get that. I'm a character actor. So oftentimes the roles I'm playing, literally especially in the world we're living in now, where, again, everybody's story here needs to be told and represented. So the doctor, the lawyer, the neighbor, the worker, the whatever can be played by a vast array now of everything, right? So opportunities now exist, and so great. So we're all coming to the table. So for whatever reason, I don't get gigs that I'm also not a big fan of, we're putting ourselves on tape a lot now. We used to go into the room, and yes, they would film it, and they'd be behind a table, and they'd film it, of course, but the casting director would be there. Often the director would be there, maybe the writer. It would just be live. They could give you a note or two. You could usually do it again or whatever. Ever since COVID, and it hasn't really bounced back as far as getting back into the room, we're putting ourselves on tape because everybody has the capability now to tape themselves. So that's a whole other, so again, another layer of me not feeling like as comfortable or as, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to have to be my own director as well now. You know what I mean? To do all these different takes and like, oh, what was some actors love it. Believe me, some actors love it, and more power to them.
That's interesting. Yeah. So obviously we're all suffering through Zoom, and there's some benefits to it. I mean, I here by day and depositions, but I would think your point's well taken. Both, I mean, not that I've ever been on the auditioning side where I'm selecting someone, but if I was for a theater production, I'd probably want to see what they do right there in person because that's what they're going to do in theater.
And most theatrical auditions are getting back to being live.
Okay.
Because for a while, of course, and look, it's still nice to be able to submit. I mean, if you're not in New York City or you're not, or there's a show in Denver or Chicago or whatever. I mean, it's nice to be able to submit yourself, with a video or sometimes a live Zoom audition or whatever it might be.
Right.
But most like film and TV auditions, at least, I mean, here, and I'm talking for episodic, like, I would go down in for The Blacklist or for Law and Order or for whatever it might be. And you would go down to the studio or the pier or wherever they were shooting, whatever it might be. And a lot of that now is not happening. It's, again, you do it at home and you send it in because it accomplishes the same thing for them. Yeah. And, I get it, but it's not my preferred way, of auditioning as far as that goes. But again, because I am primarily, I am a stage actor. So that's my, it's just.
Well, and that's how you tell a story. I mean, I've listened to, screen actors talk about what they do, and, things are filmed out of sequence, out of chronology. Sometimes they don't even know the full arc of the plot. Whereas, as you say, you're collaboratively telling the story right there that you're part of and responsible for. So, I mean, obviously there's other benefits, including financial benefits to doing movies, but that would be a little less satisfying.
Yes.
Yes, it's something about, and I've done a little bit of community theater, but it's something about being able to go on that stage and it's just action and you have to do it live. And even if you you're messing up, like you have to fix it so that the audience doesn't know you're messing up. So something about that live, keeping you on your toes, that I just love. But, definitely.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Speaking of keeping you on your toes, my last musical production, and I came out of partial retirement for that because I stopped when my voice changed. I realized I was a reasonably cute little kid actor, and then post-puberty I couldn't hold a note to save my life. But a buddy of mine from when I used to work at, remember the Harlequin Dinner Theater in Rockville?
Of course.
So I did a few shows there, and then a friend of mine bought a dinner theater up in Hagerstown, which of course is not the mecca of theater, and wasn't then either. But anyway, so I got recruited to play Rolf, also a Nazi. So you and I have that in common. And
there you go. Of course, yes.
But anyway, long story short, they did not bolt down the stools or the benches. So when I was singing 16 going on 17, one of the benches fell out right from under me, and it was 150 people there in Hagerstown. I think that was probably more funny than the rest of the show. But Liesel, is that my female counterpart's name, just continues to sing with me as we lovingly pick up the bench and put it back in place.
Wow. What?
That was it. I was done after that.
Okay, I'm retiring.
I think I'll go to law school.
Exactly.
Wow.
Hilarious.
So other great first, tell us about your you talked a little bit about your Tony nomination, and talk about being there. I remember Mel Brooks mentioning you from the podium, and talk about that experience and others since.
Yeah. Again, crazy. It was it was quite a ride. It's a wild experience because there's this window between when the nominations are announced and then the actual Tony Awards ceremony when the awards are announced and given out. And it's gotten longer and longer. And back then, the first time in 2001 with the producers, I think it was maybe like 5 weeks, and now it's like 6 weeks. And it was 6 weeks back in 2015 when I was nominated again for Something Rotten. And the difference as far as media goes, and social media, of course, in those 14 years is enormous and extraordinary. And the events and the just coverage and stuff like that. And it's exhausting because you're celebrating this nomination at the events that come with that, luncheon, nominee luncheons, other events, photographs, whatever. You're still doing 8 shows a week, by the way. Oh, and at those 8 shows a week, by the way, are the Tony voters. Because now the Tony voters are coming in this window of time between that and because you've been nominated. So that's happening. So it's a very heady, sort of crazy time because there's a lot going on and you're just trying to do the show 8 times a week, which you're trying to do anyway, just in general, because it's so crazy sometimes. So it was quite a ride, but the evening, was, could not have been more special. My folks were there. My sister was my date. It was, Tony night growing up, once I really got into theater, and again, my parents were into theater as well, so they would watch the Tonys. So once I knew what that was, Tony night was like, my God, the holiest night of the year, in our household. I mean, I kid you not, man. There were times when I would tape it with my cassette recorder. And so no one could talk during the ceremony until the commercial because I was taping it. So I would have an audio of the proceedings.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
So, yeah.
I know your parents were like, I know your
What?
parents were like losing it when they got there. Like, we are at the Tonys.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, and believe me, sharing this with them and my sister, who also, former. So yeah, sharing everything. I mean, to this very day, God bless. Everybody's still, they were up a couple of weeks ago to see this production of Oliver. So yeah, that yes is enormous joy, and it was. Yeah, I mean, my gosh, it's sort of everything, I dreamt of in that way, and just being a part of that. I certainly did not expect to win. I almost didn't even want to win in some way, because just being a part of, again, the way it all had gone down too. Plus, the 2 other guys in my, there were 3 of us from the producers nominated in the same category. And then 2 other actors who were in the full Monty were nominated. 2 other great, great performances. 5, if I may say so myself. Great performances,
sure.
But the gentleman who did win, the late great Gary Beach, who did win for playing Roger Debris, the director and the producers, was gave just such a special performance that I wanted Gary to win. And it was, it was pretty much felt that, I think Gary was going to win. I think he was pretty much the favorite. If not, it might have been Andre DeShields from the full Monty, but boy, we, that was the night the producers literally swept the Tonys. We won every category we were nominated in. We shut out every other show hated us, understandably so. So then to be a part of that, to be a part of like history was and still is just crazy because, it's everything I ever sort of loved in that way. So yes, to be a part, I still go to work, here in the city. I'm going to work. I'm doing a revival of this great show that also had such a great run off Broadway originally. And I saw it downtown in the 80s in its original run. And this production is so much like that in so many ways and is playing in the same way. It's been running now for a couple of years already and audiences are just loving it. So yeah, I'm still out there on stage and I'm like, wow, here I am, in this place, this fantasy land, as I said earlier, this, mecca of working with other professionals, everyone, pretty much at the top of their game and some not so much, but most everyone at the top of their game. And it's really, and it's an honor in that way. And I try not to forget that because it is we keep coming back to, or I keep coming back to.
Yeah.
It is hard to do it 8 times a week.
Oh, yeah.
So there are times when I have to convince myself or just say to myself, check it. Again, there's someone out there whose life you may change tonight in some way.
I tell you what, it's one of the few places that I don't get to Broadway that often. We obviously have theater that comes through our town that's decent quality. There's a lot of good quality touring shows. But the theater and occasionally an art museum are one of the few places where I cry, and in a good way. I cry in a bad way other places.
Yeah.
But there's something about the emotions you're able to evoke. And so I have been that one person on a number of occasions. So thank you.
Yeah, right. But exactly, because again, we're all sharing this experience at the same time. And to bring all that, the energy of, again, the story that you're telling, the story that we're telling, and then everybody bringing, their day, their story, their connective tissue. I mean, there's a lot going on in that space, and if you believe in energy, and I don't know what I believe as far as all that goes, honestly, but I do believe that there's something. So you have a lot of energies going on in one space between what's happening on stage and what's coming at you from the audience. And then when we're all joined together in this one, shared experience with all that energy, it's a very special thing.
Are you suggesting that our Reformed Jewish upbringing may not have stuck? Is that what you're suggesting there, Brad? Are you coming out as a skeptic?
I guess. No, I'm just saying it's a different kind of religion, I guess.
I think that's
Oh,
right.
my God.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Oh, wow. So when you're talking about, the heaviness of having to come out and portray this character and being authentic and all these things, when it is show day, what is your opening night ritual? Like, what is that one thing that you always do? Opening night, or even every weekend, this Saturday and Sunday. Do you have?
Well, it's funny. I can't say that I do, because, again, each show requires its own prep, if you will. For the most part, like I say, you when you're doing a show, you have to be at the theater by half hour before curtain. And then what you do during that half hour, as far as getting ready, getting dressed. Now, your hair and makeup, right, is going to be different for everybody. I, in this instance, have absolutely no hair and makeup, so I don't have to worry about that. If you have hair and makeup, there may be a schedule that you need to adhere to, which, sometimes you may have to get there a little earlier, but I don't think technically they can play. But anyway, so you might have to be like in hair at 1:30 and then. So anyway,
so everyone must have taken, an hour or more to get ready?
Oh, God, no, not at all. See, that's just it. Again, here's the trick. You're doing, you're doing this 8 times a week. Now, unless you're something, there is elaborate prep. My God, Shrek, The Phantom, I know there's prep for that, right? There are roles that require a lot more time, to prep, to get out there on stage. But I would say that 95% of what's happening does not. So, and 95% of it is also in the hands of the actors. You do your own makeup. You, not your own hair. You'll go to the hair room to have your wig put on by the hair department. They'll do that prep. They'll do that. But, yeah, otherwise you sort of take care of yourself. And so, yeah. So in other words, but yes, I had makeup for Nostradamus, but once you're doing that same makeup 8 times a week, and it's not like ridiculously extensive like Cats or something like that, which originally had very extensive makeup, I could put on my Nostradamus makeup, I'm sure easily within 10 minutes. I could do that. So, and then I think that then hair would come in at like 1:45. So I'd want to be ready by 1:45. I'd want to have my face done by 1:45 so that I could put my wig on.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So Jen's asking, maybe to some extent, to get into character and obviously a deeper discussion of the type of actor, method acting, and so forth. It sounds like you can bounce in and out of character pretty quickly.
Look, it's why they call it acting. I don't mean to sound like casual. And look, again, every actor and every piece, again, is its own thing, And so there are, because I'm mostly doing musical theater and upbeat musical, whatever. Yes. For the most part, again, it's your job. You're doing this 8 times a week. So unless you have a specific ritual and or place that you need to be in, I need to be quiet for 10 minutes. I need to be away from. I need that because this is the journey that this actor is going on. Believe me, I totally respect that. And there are plays and pieces that require that because they are very demanding and or take you to a different place emotionally, psychologically, whatever that might be. So again, as I said before, then each piece has its own requirements as far as the prep. But most of the stuff that, I've been involved with, everybody gets ready, then they call places. Most people gather on stage because either there's a big opening number or whatever, but a lot of people tend to start the show together. And it's, again, how you doing? What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. Lights go down and boom, we do what you do what you do. Yeah. And, it's once again, because, we've rehearsed it and we know what we're doing and it's in your body and there's hopefully muscle memory. The more you actually get to, the repetitive doing it every night or whatever and getting to a comfortable place where you can really live it and breathe it, which is like the joy of doing it, because initially it's very hard when you're working on a new piece and you're making changes. And so stuff is going to be different every night. So, that's a crazy process. But yeah, the joy of sort of living and breathing it once it's in your body is a pretty cool thing. But I can't say I have any real, rituals, things that I just try to be present and bring myself to, whatever it is and have that sort of grounded moment if I can.
Tough to come back after being murdered. I know you've been murdered quite a bit on stage, haven't you?
I've been murdered. Yes, exactly. I'm getting eaten by a plant 8 times a week.
Yeah, that's true. And then, did they put your face up on the flower like the production I saw, or?
I don't want to give away. We're in the grand finale. Let me tell you, a song that I love, "Don't Feed the Plants." People are always like, "Wait a minute, that's not how the movie ends." I'm like, I know, not exactly. The movie's not how the play ends.
Right.
Yes,
has to start somewhere.
Yes.
Broadway's so accessible as well. I mean, I think that's one of the neat things, probably what gave you a passion for it, going up and seeing shows 4 times a year when I bring my kids or when I've been up there before, and you get to meet the actors or actresses backstage. And just, and as you say, it's, even the largest Broadway theater is not that large compared to where you might go to see Taylor Swift or something like that. Everything's just so touchable and accessible.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were, this was destined for you. I mean, your parents loving theater and you recording the Tonys, then at the Tonys, even when you said when you first got to New York and you were waiting tables, but it was in an area near the theater. So you're meeting people and even the joy that you have for it. You it's a hamster wheel up and down, but you love it. You wouldn't do anything else. I can tell you wouldn't do anything else.
You're guilty. You are correct.
So I love the joy that you have for it. It seems like, your sister, that's what you're supposed to be doing. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I truly, again, because especially, the older I get and with perspective and just, this business is very random. I have so many friends. I have so many people that I have been have been part of my world in the last 40 years since I've been, an adult or whatever. And then certainly once I moved to the city and entered the world of this business, very, very talented, enormously talented people, more talented than me, I would think. And again, it's all subjective. Who, it just didn't happen. They left for one reason or another. They chose not to do it anymore. They left. They did this. They did that. It's all well and good. You take care of yourself. But I mean, many people who dreamt of this as well. So I always feel very, privileged and always a little guilty because, because I'm a Jew, but also because I know, people again, very close to me, my sister, my husband, people who are actors, people who know what this is all about and love it as well. And I would love for them to share the same and have the same joy and success in that way that I have been very fortunate to have, much less again, friends. So, I don't take that for granted. I know that there's a certain amount of, whatever the randomness is, because talent is that's all subjective. And that's all, again, being in the right place at the right time. And someone likes you and someone laughs and someone, so believe me, it's still a kick. I actually, get to do it. And yes.
By all accounts, you're right. All those things are true. But you are known as, and certainly even my history of knowing you, a really good, nice person. So it certainly couldn't have happened to a better person. your parents, and Jenn mentioned them. Again, I have a picture of what they were like then. Just lovely people, stage parents only in the best of ways. They were so encouraging of you and Vicky and everybody when they came to productions. They've been good friends of my parents since probably before I was born. And I know it must be so nice for you to share your success with them.
Yes. And it is. And, it's trickle down. As I say, I am the person I am, because of my parents in so many ways. My gosh, as are most of us, I think. And so, yes, I am very grateful, and I am very happy to have been taught that as far as how to, I guess, play with others, if you will, because I do love what I get to do, and I want people to want to work with me. I want to be someone that people want to be in the room, because I bring to the table, again, not only my creative ideas and my talents and abilities, my voice, whatever that might be, but my personality, my demeanor, my way of working. It's a very personal again, like we've talked about ego. It's a very, a lot of actors can be very guarded and or protective and defensive because, they're for whatever reason, it's precious. They're scared, and I understand that, but it can make for choppy waters in a way that sometimes, so yeah, I believe me, I'm very happy that yes, I feel like, yes, people do like me, but yes, it goes right back to my folks, to my family, to my friends, my husband as well, who's wonderful in that way and such a great influence, grounding presence in my life. And
of course, let's be honest, my delivery of those little cups screw off in the Hanukkah show, that really been one of the more important influences in your life, to get on and find better actors.
Oh my God.
Well, Brad, it's really a rare pleasure for me to get to catch up with you and just say congratulations and thanks for joining us.
Oh, you bet. This has been a pleasure. Thank you. It is. It's great to
meet you.
Yeah. And you as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, my friend. Say hello to your family.
I certainly will. Be well.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Well, he's amazing, isn't he?
Yes, he was nice. And it just seems like he's made for theater.
Yeah.
The ups and downs, he's like riding with it because it's really what he was supposed to be doing.
It's so funny, too. I remember going to see him at high school talent shows, and he was, he was so much more talented than your average high school talent show person, but probably also trying to find his place. Mm-hmm. And, it's just, it's so nice when you see someone who knows they're made for something, and they pursue it, and the stars align. And then, again, in his case, by my observation and more importantly, by reputation, just a good guy who does things the right way.
For you to say that, like he's such a good guy. He seems that way, even his demeanor now. Like, he's just a good guy. Like, the ups, downs, the whatever. Like, he's just taking it all in stride.
Yeah.
No ego, no anything.
Yeah, which I guess, it's when you get to succeed at the highest level, whatever it is, but especially when it's pretending to be someone else and pretending to be someone grand, to be able to ground yourself and just be a good person and a good family person and remember your roots and help other people. That's so impressive.
That's awesome. And your memory is very impressive because you're remembering stuff from over 40 years ago. I'm like, he was like, wait, what?
Well, it was more important to me than it was to him, probably. It's like when you meet that celebrity at a pizza place and you're like, remember when I met you 3 years ago?
Yeah, and like, absolutely not. Yeah. I don't even remember having pizza that day.
Yeah. But no, I'm so glad that our listeners and you get to share in Brad's success. I don't think he's nearly done yet.
No.
I think he's got a lot of good stuff ahead of him. And if you're in New York and have the opportunity to go see The Little Shop of Horrors, that's a really good one as well. There's plenty of stuff on YouTube where you can see him performing in a whole variety of productions. And occasionally I'm watching Law & Order late at night and I see him show up as a pawn shop owner or something like that.
I think that's really cool.
All the extras and all the, not even extras, but people that play a short character or sometimes a cadaver are Broadway actors. It's very funny. But so that was a good one. Thanks for joining me, Jenn.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
My first rodeo.